The Rock, the final boss, has returned to the WWE. Chills. We're going to talk about his return in the main event segment of Bad Blood and everything else that happened in Black Wrestling this week in just a second, so stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, Yeet, and of course, the omnipresent man that is Gerard. When I say his name, he will appear, not even just in the wrestling space, but in the gospel space as well. Yeah, I saw you with Fred Hammond and Commission. Yeah, I love that. I love that for you. That's phenomenal.
Incredible. Incredible.
Speaking of great people, legends, icons, and goosebumps, the final boss made his return at Bad Blood this weekend, this Saturday. I'll leave Mex to talk about it. I'll tell you why I'm asking Mex to talk about it. I saw the reaction video of you and Anafi and the rest of the Wrestling's boys when he came through the curtain and the reaction you lot gave. So talk me through what was going through your mind as that all panned out.
I mean, it's one of them ones where I think we probably all saw earlier in the day he was in Georgia anyway. So you get the inkling, but it's like nothing, it still hits when you hear, if you smell, like just like when you were a child. So, we had this main event of the mega powers, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes joining forces to go up against the Bloodline. And obviously, a lot of people have spoken about the quality of the match itself. I won't get into that. It's more so, the rest of the Bloodline came in to do their usual Bloodline tropes. You had Jimmy Uso return, which was great to see. He called the shot, called the play, and, saved Roman Reigns ultimately and helped him record a victory on his first match back since WrestleMania. And when you see Roman and Cody Rhodes convening and looking like they're on the same page or showing some level of respect to each other, it's like the dad comes out sort of thing, like in The Rock. And it was like, so this is what you two are doing. After you dragged me to WrestleMania, Roman, to fight on your behalf, to fight against this guy. Now you guys are here showing each other respect. I got you. I understand. So, yeah, it was almost like that kind of situation. But always great to see The Rock. Massive reaction from us, like you said, because it's just like, well, yeah, you feel like business is about to pick up. Roman's back, Rock's back. We are the tail end of 2024. We know where, WrestleMania season traditionally kind of started at the Royal Rumble, but with the way they're telling stories and the characters they've got, and even what we know, moving to Netflix is going to be like on the 6th of January for the WWE. It's almost like we're starting off that road now, and then right. Rumble will still be the real road to Mania. But yeah, it's all getting exciting again.
It's interesting. The Rock comes out, says nothing, just stands there, looks. After about 20 minutes, raises his eyebrow, and then he does this. Gerard, what does that mean?
Well, at first, I thought the countdown was to cue his music, because after he did the 3, 2, 1, his music came on. But it does feel like there's more. I mean, the last thing he told us is that he's coming back for Cody for the championship. Cody wouldn't know when. And now there's a lot to wonder. Is he after Cody? Does he finally have words for Roman? What does he think of this new bloodline? There's a lot more questions than answers right now. And I like that, because when there are multiple paths that we can go, we are very interested, because we have to pay attention to watch to see what's going to happen here. And we couldn't tell from that. It was perfect. It was perfect. Now, clearly, we're watching everything. And that's the other thing about when The Rock comes back, you now have to watch more than TV. You have to watch Instagram. You have to watch fan videos. Because he can show up on anything at any time. And
Mhm.
whatever he does in that space is going to be necessary for us in terms of painting this picture together and making everything, make sense. So I love it. I don't know what it means, but I'm here to watch.
Right. It takes us all the way back to the excitement and the feels and the adrenaline that we felt on the road to WrestleMania when he first came back. He said the whole thing about head of the table, then it turned into what it turned into. Then we saw the slap, and then we saw literally everything else that then happened on week to week. And it's kind of like feeling that excitement again. It's been what, 7-8 months, something like that since you've seen him and felt that excitement. So it's exciting to see what happens from here. And you say we have to watch everything. We have to watch Instagram, fan videos, and particularly fan videos. There's one specific one that I saw where a fan is right next to Solo Sikoa as the Bloodline scampered up the ladder, up the stairs, and stood at the stairs watching The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and Roman in the ring. And Solo says it's part of the plan. Does that tell us an obvious? Is that story as obvious as we think it is? Could that mean something completely different?
Go ahead.
No, I think this is them again, like almost creating a number of avenues. It can be something if they need it to be. It can be nothing of what we think that was supposed to be, sort of thing. Like it could be Solo just meaning, yes, we've caused unrest in the family. Or it can be what I guess a lot of people think it is, that yes, this is Solo saying that The Rock is in on whatever Solo's doing, sort of thing, and he's the real tribal chief, high chief, whatever you want to call it. So it's like, yeah, it's just a nice little wrinkle that gets the people going and keeps people talking and creates, like I say, a number of avenues of where they can go.
Very interesting. It's very interesting. There's so much things that can come from this. There were so many returns that have happened over the weekend as well. We talked about The Rock. Jey Uso came back. Goldberg, what happened there? Goldberg, AJ Styles on SmackDown. Raquel Rodriguez as well at Bad Blood. There is so much more going on, and I think to what Mix was saying as well. This isn't necessarily just a possible start of the road to WrestleMania, but more so the start to the road to Netflix. And I think that's the important bit as well. Going into all of that and kind of keeping with the same subject, and we talk about Jey Uso. Jey Uso beat Xavier Woods on Raw last night, defended his Intercontinental Championship, and was attacked by Bron Breakker. I think we briefly talked about Bron Breakker last week, and what is this whole thing of him possibly turning face? Now he's turned heel, and then attacks Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Max, what are your thoughts on this whole sway?
I don't know. I think I don't want to say misstep. I'm sure they've got a plan. However, like Bron Breakker doesn't really have the flippy floppiness. Like he's a heel, but he's calling out the dogs are barking in X city, and which is like a face move. You see what I mean? Then he effectively turns face last week, and now he's a heel again. Like I don't.
Did he turn face last week though?
He maybe not, but he showed face mannerisms. Let's put it like that. He congratulated Jey Uso. He showed a level of humility and respect to Jey Uso, which are like more so face attributes. And then he comes and lays him out, and Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods last night. So yeah, it's just a bit like, well, what are you? Because even when we could say he's a heel, like I say, the barking stuff is very much like crowd engagement stuff that a babyface would do. So I thought they were using that to help turn him face, and then we saw a face turn last week, but clearly not. So I don't know.
Gerard.
Yeah, I'm tending to think that we're moving into an area, that A, mirrors real life, and B, feels more like the Attitude Era, which is the tweener, the person who you don't know if they're face one week or heel the next. And, when you think about it, you had him showing respect to Jey Uso. Then you had him getting in the face of Gunther last week, which I think people thought, oh, well, he's done with the Intercontinental title. Now he could be going after the world title. Then he kind of has this, I don't know, change of heart, or maybe this realization of, this is who I am. I don't care about anybody. I don't like anybody. And he reminds himself of that. I think this in between, not sure what he is actually good, because it's more of a reflection of who most people really are. One day you might be feeling good about a situation, and then the next day you'll go, why did I just do that? That doesn't make a lick of sense, and then you go back and go in the direction that you were trying to go before. So I think adding this layer of what many would call it's complicated is actually really good. We're still not in a space where everybody is all face and all heel. I mean, I think we can see, it reminds me of people, who were trying to discuss, okay, were the Twin Tower, or the Terror Twins rather, were they the faces or the heels, or was Judgment Day the faces or the heels? And depending upon where you fit in that story, you could say, I side with so-and-so. I think it's the same kind of thing that they're giving us with the complex nature of Braun Breaker, who at the end of the day, he just cares about himself. He's not saving anybody. He's not trying to preserve anybody. He's not coming to anybody's aid. He just had a moment in time where he showed respect to Jey Uso. But after that, now it's on. Let me come back and get what I shouldn't have lost in the first place.
Yeah, and I think I love it as well, in the sense where, as Mix rightly said, some of the things that he did last week were very much face attributes, but did that actually make him a face? You know what I mean? Did he actually turn face? So for him to do what he did yesterday, still to me made sense, and it also then made me feel excited that we're not in this space where everything feels predictable. We have to look at every little detail and ask the question, because if we just went with what happened last week, people are like, yeah, he's face now, that's it, end of. But then we see what he did yesterday, go back to last week and be like, oh, actually, did he actually turn face or not?
Right.
And you mentioned we're in this era where people question the Judgment Day. I mean, we're in this era where Dominic Mysterio as a heel turned heel. So it's all happening. And one of the biggest reasons why I mentioned the whole Braun Breaker thing and what he's done. I think we've kind of seen a very similar thing with Xavier Woods, who was involved in the match as well. Kind of not knowing which way he's going and what he wants to do, and he's got conflict of interest and all this kind of thing. Gerard, what do you think's next? He's now lost that opportunity that he was given. How do you think this will affect his mindset?
I think one of two things can happen. One, he can try to figure out, how do I, get myself back, and try to figure out how to go after this championship again. He could also just figure out, what I'm doing just isn't working. Let me full on turn. I think the challenge coming for him now will be in this reduction of Raw going from 3 hours to 2 hours. So there's less time to kind of fill in some of those blanks that would get filled in that 3 hour space. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work for him. If this will be a case where, like we were talking about with The Rock, he'll utilize social media to start filling in the blank. There will be certain, maybe posts that he does, or videos that he does, or responses to Kofi where, we'll start getting, or maybe there'll be some footage leaked like it was last week, the argument that happened backstage. I think there are lots of ways for the story to be told. I still think that by the time we get to the 10-year anniversary of the New Day is where this is all going to blow up. And it's going to be one of those moments. And I think it has to happen there for us to really dislike Xavier.
Mm. Yeah, very true. Max, what are your thoughts on where Xavier is going and the match itself as well with Jay?
The match was of no real quality. I was disappointed. I feel like that was the first reminder for me as I was watching that, oh, Raw is now 2 hours and we're kind of rushing through things and not letting things breathe. I was pretty much surprised that a match that they could have built that has so much history between the two men, they even rushed to have this week sort of thing. I thought that easily could have been like a crown jewel match, you know, if they wish to put the match on that pay-per-view or whatever. So yeah, I'm not surprised something with such little effort in terms of story ended in a whimper and how it did. Was quite disappointing in my point of view. But for Xavier Woods, I don't know what it's going to take to get him back round, you know, on side of the New Day and get his head right again. I think Big E's the answer to kind of get him back where he needs to be, but I do think we haven't hit rock bottom yet. There is more trouble to come, trouble in paradise, if you like, to come before we get that restoration. But I'm still fairly confident the New Day won't split up. It's just this is a man that needs to literally hit the ground before maybe the likes of Big E or another situation makes him come to his senses and turn things around.
Interesting. I think me and Gerard are expecting the split up to happen at the 10th anniversary. Literally.
I don't think it will. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want it to happen. I want it to happen. I just don't think it will.
Right. This makes it interesting though for the lead up as well. Like it could happen because it's kind of like a milestone and blah blah blah. Then it probably won't happen because it's the way Big E comes back. Can we get back the New Day proper? Either way, it works out for me. I think either way it works out. But I would just like to see, I guess, Xavier's time come. But then at the same time, if Big E does return, would that happen?
Overshadowing? Yeah, that's overshadowing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like to think about.
I think if he does come back, then it's a guarantee that Xavier splits because he's been waiting for the attention. And this will be just another, and in his words to Kofi last week, another former world champion that you guys are paying attention to because I'm not a former world champion. So I think, I think we're going that route.
I think in a way, I think we've seen this a couple of times before where something might happen on a type of storyline might happen on NXT. And then we see it like a few months or a year down the line on the main roster with different people. In a way, I feel as though it's going to be a similar thing to Wesley and the Rascals. To where Big E comes back, saves them, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's back together. And then maybe Xavier turns. It might not be like 2-3 weeks later, but you know what I mean? Whether it be the same day, be 3-4 months later, just before WrestleMania, maybe, possibly something like that. I think that could possibly happen, but I love the fact that there are so many possibilities that actually work, regardless of which way it goes. We're speaking of black singles competitors getting chances. Of course, before we came on air last week, about an hour or so before, we saw that the WWE had recognized that there is some sort of issue or something to be aware of in terms of black singles wrestlers and black male wrestlers on PLEs in general. That conversation ended up on the press conference at Bad Blood, and Triple H was asked the question about the whole situation, and I'm going to read out exactly what he responded with. I see everybody gets the opportunity. I don't see the difference in anybody. I don't see the color. I don't see the nationality or any of that. I just see talent. It carries on for a little bit more, but the thing that everyone's kind of pulling out of this is I don't see color. Now, we as black people, we know when someone says that, that's not necessarily a good thing to say. I mean, I know they're probably saying it in that way, and they probably mean good things, but we see it in a very different way. I believe there's been a reaction from, I believe it was Dusty Rhodes, who brought up something that Cody Rhodes said in the press conference on a very similar situation when Cody was back in AEW, when he brought up something that his wife, Brandy Rhodes, said to him in a private conversation, when she said, if you don't see color, then you don't see our struggle. So there's been a mixed reaction to all of this, to what Triple H said. I want to get your guys' reactions on what he said, how you took it, and what you think it means. Mex, I'll go to you with this one first.
Firstly, again, firstly, I'd like to say this is another example of why these post-show press conferences just don't work for me. Because I feel the question was a good question, but then you're not prepared to answer it correctly. And maybe fine, like we caught him. You've given your genuine answer. You couldn't prepare your own answer, sort of thing. And that's maybe how you really feel, whatever. But generally, I just feel like, again, on both companies, these post-show press conferences don't do anyone any favors. It's just how I generally feel about them since they started becoming popular. In regards to Triple H's response and what you just mentioned about Brandy Rhodes, I think it's totally right. Like, for you to say you don't like, I was quite disappointed because I really do like Triple H and what he's done. And for you to say that, it's like, yeah, you're not acknowledging this certain group of people's experiences and this, that, and the other. At a time where I feel like you guys always seem to make a point about recruiting Latino talent to make sure you've got like a foothold in Spanish markets and stuff like that. And you're trying to repair relationships in Japan and stuff like that. So I feel like, yes, we are another group of people, but it's like you're trying to tick books for everyone else, but it's as simple as, yes, we need to add some focus to this area, and we need to start seeing what male singles talent that we can push and get the best out of to push to a PLE level. I really think the answer was as simple as that. I understand you saying, yes, talent is, what is most important, sort of thing. But again, we're highlighting a specific, corner of your demographic, especially at a time where hip hop culture and stuff is running through the veins of this company like never before. Like entrance music, that whole Bad Blood was full of like hip hop royalty from, the 2010s and today, sort of thing. People that have been reigning and stuff like that. You have Sexy Red on the show on Raw yesterday. She's on NXT tonight. Like, these are Black people that, again, you want to represent these people on your screens at the highest level, which is the PLEs. And it just feels like, I don't know, it's just, firstly, it could be something that's, okay, it was an oversight where we've been leaving them off or we haven't promoted anyone to that level. But now for you to kind of say that, it's like, well, yeah, you do need to, because you're doing it elsewhere. Like I said, you're looking at Latino talents, you're looking at these people, whatever. So you do need to pay some focus here. The answer was just poorly worded, I would like to say. But like we said last week, if they've acknowledged that this is somewhere that they need to improve on, the ball's in their court now. Let's see how they're going to improve on it.
Yeah. Gerard?
So I want to preface what I'm about to say by first saying I think that we have to be very careful about classifying people when we start calling people racist and things like that, just because there are too many other things that are happening within the WWE that wouldn't support that. With that said, was his answer worded well? No. I had an experience a few years ago here in the States where we had a number of situations happening that were national news and international news in terms of racist issues that happened involving the police officers and unarmed Black men. And I was connected to a group of Caucasian people who, during this time, started asking me questions that, you know, if they asked on Twitter or Facebook, would have probably gotten them canceled. Questions like, why do people get upset when you say all lives matter? You know, versus Black Lives Matter. And what I realized in that moment is that these are people who I have worked with, who have been genuine to me. I've not had any issues, but they were willing to acknowledge, hey, you know what? We want to be supportive, but we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. Part of the challenge that I realized in that moment is most of us as African Americans or people of color have no interest in taking the time to educate these people, because we are so busy going through our struggle that what seems obvious to us should seem obvious to them. The reality of it is it doesn't. So let me say this a different way so that people can understand. There are words and terms that I could use in the context of the UK that, because I'm not regularly in the UK, I might think they're cool things to say, and you guys might be, don't say that. That's kind of a, no, you don't want to do that. And vice versa, right? There's another scenario that I want to share. There are some terms that we use as a colloquialism that they mean well. If we say things like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's insane, right? We mean like that was out of this world. But saying that for people in the mental health community who are struggling with bipolar disorder and the like, that is offensive. Most of us don't consider it because we're not part of that community. The reason why I'm saying that is what that showed me, I think the heart of what he was trying to say was, hey, we just want to, post the best stories and the best whatever. He doesn't understand, just like Cody didn't understand, that when you say you're colorblind, that's not a compliment, right? So what it says to me is that there aren't likely enough people around Triple H who are entrenched in the culture to be able to update him to say, sir, listen, when you're talking to us, these are things that you don't say. That was what was clear to me. Because for people, and I don't know that we consider this, and I almost don't care what people say, because what I'm realizing is most people aren't willing to do the work to have the conversations with people to educate them. I've done it for 10 years. And so what I've realized is there are people who are very genuine who are not part of our culture, so they don't know. When they say they're colorblind, they're trying to say, hey, color doesn't influence the way I make decisions. But what we as people of color hear and receive is, you don't see my experience. You don't see me, because me being Black is as much a part of me as being a man, right? It's something I can't change. It's something I was born with. It's that. So my concern about the internet wrestling community is, we've already talked about scenarios where the internet wrestling community does not always think critically about a number of things. And so with moments like that, nobody's thinking, who's going to pull Triple H to the side and educate him on how to handle this kind of thing, right? I will go so far as to say that I am somewhat confident that there are likely more people who represent other communities who are able to educate Triple H and people like him on things to say and things not to say in certain communities that would be offensive. To me, this is why it's important that we have more people of color in executive positions in companies of this nature, to be able to in creative and in these other places, to be able to speak to what our experience is, so that those people who are making those decisions, when they get out in front of the public, can answer properly and allow their heart to be properly articulated. It's hard to call this man a racist given the fact that, and we'll talk about what happened on NXT last week, you know, given that the longest reigning North American champion looks like us, like we've got 2 female African-American ring announcers on the 2 main brands of this company. There are too many things for us to call him a racist. I do think it's accurate to say that there probably aren't enough people around him to give him language to how to properly address and articulate these kinds of issues.
I think for me, with everything that you've just said, there are 2 things that kind of, you know, stand out for me. And it's about the whole, you know, people in being able to have a conversation with him and whatnot. I would imagine, I would like to think, should I say, that given that this whole thing kind of came up about a week ago, that there's been some kind of discussion with the heads on how we're going to solve this, blah, 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 blah. Bad Blood's coming up. We're going to have a press conference. Surely one person's going to ask this question because it's what everyone's been talking about all week. How do we answer that question? Where was that conversation? Because if that was the way he answered it, I would imagine if they did have the conversation, as you said, there's probably no one in the room who either, you know, has the experience or comfort enough to say something and say, right, wow, this is blah, 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 blah. This is how you answer it. Because I can imagine, not even just out of necessarily a fear of Triple H in terms of, you know, he's a big scary man kind of fear, but more of a, I shouldn't have to tell him how to answer this. Surely he knows by now. Maybe in that kind of a sense. And again, given the reaction from what he said, I can't see anyone going up to him and telling him, oh, that was probably not the best way to say it, unless he asks. Unless he sees the reaction and says, oh, did I say something wrong? Oh, what should I have said? Or what did I say wrong? So I'm a little worried. We're coming back to this whole thing where we were talking about this like a year ago, 2 years ago, where again, we're still missing people in influence or who have enough of a presence in order to kind of not dictate, but, you know, push people in the right direction, tell them how to say things, educate people, all that kind of stuff. But yet we're seeing the likes of a Jason Jordan, Mark Henry's been in the back. You've seen Devon Dudley, Teddy Long, all these different people who have had, you know, had some kind of influence in terms of like, you know, the plans and the decision making in WWE. But yet we still get these same little issues kind of pop up every now and again.
I wonder this, the report that came out last week about WWE being aware of what the issue is. I don't know who in WWE was aware.
Right.
So I say that to say, what is the possibility that an issue like this made it all the way up the chain to Triple H in less than 7 days? This, and I say this respectfully, this issue did not scream as loud as the Cody Crybabies issue, right? Which trended for 3 whole days. They couldn't ignore that. I don't know that this trended like that.
Right.
And I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge is what might be big in our circle isn't likely as big in the larger circle. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not me trying to explain certain things away. I think this is us trying to get an understanding of what happened here. And to me, I doubt that there was a meeting that said, hey, this question is likely to be asked. Because to be perfectly honest with you, I was surprised to hear the question. I was I was surprised. It felt like this was another one of those kind of Twitter discussions that just stays on Twitter, but doesn't really ever leave there. So the fact that that was the first question that was asked to Triple H really caught me off guard. And I was like, okay, what are we going to say to this? And his answer, again, I felt like was one that he was not prepared for. And I think he was, you know, just didn't have the language that he needed to express what I think his heart might have been based on what I've seen in other spaces.
I think it's kind of, you know, to even help make sense of what you said about, you know, certain issues to us or a smaller community, maybe, you know, a certain issue might be massive to us, but then small in the big spaces. I mean, you can look at pro wrestling in that way. You know what I mean? We follow pro wrestling. We've got, you know, tens and thousands of people every single week going to the shows and spending how much money, and TV companies are ready to spend $1 billion and 55 million and so and whatever else. But then you go out into you leave your house in the morning. No one, you're not gonna find another wrestling fan within 25 miles of where you are. You know what I mean? So it's big to us and it's big within what we do. But outside of us, it's small. So I understand that mindset. But again, I still feel as though that kind of throws up a bit of a red flag in terms of, you know, why isn't it a topic of discussion? It doesn't have to be the biggest one. It doesn't have to be top of the agenda. But why does it not come up? Why is there no one that's kind of looking at some of these things and say, all right, let's talk about, oh, did you see this? Oh, did you see that? So
well, and again, I think the answer to that is that's why people that look like us need to be in spaces like that. Because just for, you know, the same reason why I believe it's important that women are in those kinds of spaces, because who's going to better speak to what the issues of women are than a woman? You know, who better to speak to the issues that people of color deal with than people of color? So I think, you know, one of the reasons why that doesn't, and again, I've seen this in places outside of wrestling as well. So these aren't just wrestling issues. These are world issues. And it's the same in almost every company. If there's not somebody who is either in that community or connected to that community to be in those rooms, that issue's not going to come up, because to them, the number one issue they're talking about in terms of color is green. They're trying to figure out what's going to make more money. And so how they can make more money and all those types of things is one thing, you know, and then there will be somebody who will likely talk about the community arm and talk about, you know, social spaces and all of these kinds of things. But I think as a community, we have to understand that's why it's important that we get people into those spaces in every company to be able to speak to these true issues of diversity and inclusion.
I mean, you know, it was mentioned many times in the Vince McMahon documentary, you know, that wrestling imitates how the world is. So
it really does. It really does.
I guess that's a strong reflection. Max, any more words on this before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'll say Triple H isn't racist. You know, Gerard said the same thing. I'd agree. Like, there's too much to show that, you know, there is an emphasis being put on all of this stuff. It was just a poorly worded answer, and like I said at the top of my piece, that I just don't think these press conferences are doing anybody favors. So either kayfabe them completely, or bear the wrath of what comes from them, and what the journalists are gonna ask, whether it's questions on, you know, the color of the talent that get on the shows, whether it's questions on your father-in-law and scandals and stuff like that. Like, if you don't want to kind of really what's the word, curate the people and the questions that are going to be asked to fit into your narrative and your world, then yes, like you said, Dazzle, I think it's far time they start thinking, well, what's been in the news this week? What are they going to ask me about? Let's start, you know, trying to prep some type of answers for certain things, so that we don't come across looking like idiots. And unfortunately, this is maybe the second occasion this year where Triple H hasn't come out of those looking the best. One of the other ones being about the whole Vince McMahon saga. So yeah.
Fair enough. We move on. We move away from WWE. We head our way over to AEW. We saw last week, Wednesday, MVP on the show for a second week, but this time he wasn't alone. Shelton Benjamin made his first appearance on AEW. It was then announced and reported a few hours after his appearance that he and Bobby Lashley have reportedly signed contracts or signed agreements, deals, whatever it is, and did so probably about a month ago. So we asked the question, the imminent Bobby Lashley appearance, but there was another thing that happened on that show with Mercedes Moné. She was backstage, and of course, MVP has come up to her. Where are we going with this? Where are we going here?
Can I just say, whatever MVP is selling, she needs to buy it, whatever it is. Because I watched her segment before I think MVP came out, and it was just saying how great she's been for AEW. Some vignette like of basically nothingness, just a heel kind of move. And then on Collision, which I just managed to get around to watching this morning, it was practically the same thing, gloating about this vignette, how she's great. And then Statlander came up against what's her face? Camille. And it's just like, Mercedes, like, don't make me have to write a video essay about you and what you are not doing in AEW. I saw a report, and I'm waiting for more to come out, and maybe other more credible places, let me say that, to kind of see if it reflects the same as this report about basically how much she's being paid, and if it's basically worked out so far to be good business for AEW in terms of what they're paying her. And yeah, it's very hard to kind of quantify the two with, under a year. So that's why I say I'm not biting the bullet on that just yet. But if those rumblings and those kind of conspiracies are already kind of floating around, it's not good. So, but yeah, I think if she did join MVP or whatever, that could be something to really latch onto. Like we said early doors, I think she should have joined the Elite and been one of the EVP, CEO, or whatever you want to call herself. This could also be somewhere nice to kind of tuck her in. I know there's the added wrinkle of Camille comes in the package, and Camille's not quite black, but we can work that one out some way somehow.
We had Owen Hart.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. So, that is true.
It's doable.
But yeah, I think it's a good avenue for her.
I believe so too. Is it, just imagine the visual and the possibility. We've got MVP. We've got his business manager and president of complaints, Shelton Benjamin. Bobby Lashley, Swerve, and Mercedes with Camille if she stays along. Is that, Gerard, is that ever what you envisioned in terms of not even the Hurt business, but now the Hurt Syndicate, as MVP has been using the hashtag after Shelton Benjamin made his return? Is that ever what you envisioned?
It's not what I envisioned, but I like it. I think if you're going to take a concept from somewhere else and bring it to a new space, it needs to be bigger and better. Kind of reminds me of, over in AEW when pretty much the Undisputed Era showed up, and they couldn't call them the Undisputed Era. So they called it, they merged with the Kingdom from Ring of Honor and called themselves the Undisputed Kingdom. Well, I guess you can't control when people get hurt, like Adam Cole getting hurt, Kyle O'Reilly getting hurt. And they never really became what the Undisputed Era was by any stretch of the imagination. So, and part of it could be, they had the wrong people in, adding the Kingdom to it didn't really help the situation at all. I think in this case, if done right, it could actually be stronger than the original. Because you have a ton of main event level talent if you go with all the people we named. Bobby Lashley, a former world champion, MVP, the inaugural IWGP Intercontinental Champion, Shelton Benjamin, 25 years of experience, multiple championships. You add Swerve, former tag champion, former world champion. You add Mercedes and her pedigree. And then Camille as one of the longest reigning NWA women's world champion.
True.
This is a championship situation here.
Wow.
that really could be a problem in AEW if they all come together and you let them loose. Oh, forget it. It could be incredible. Incredible.
And that's the thing. Like, as you said, it has to be bigger. What we got with the Hurt Business is, I think it was better than what it was even supposed to be.
Yes.
In a massive way. I think they realized maybe after a little bit, and they did all the things with them holding tag team and the world championship as well. But I think even that was bigger than they expected it to be as well. So I think if MVP's gone in and he's done the business that he wanted, and he's going off the back of what they did in WWE, to then garner himself a better deal or whatever else it is with AEW, he has to ask for more. There's no way he's walking into that room and be like, yeah, just put me on TV when you're ready. He'll be like, this is what we did. This is what happened. This is when it happened. This is what happened when we were there, and the numbers in terms of, maybe even streaming and TV numbers and blah, blah, blah. The demand of people wanting to see the Hurt Business back again, and having the opportunity to have, the three original members on your screen at the same time, all of that. He has to demand more. And what's crazy is with Swerve and Mercedes, they've literally done that for themselves.
Yes.
They've literally done that for themselves already, and have, as it's been reported this week. I think Swerve put up a post on Twitter, quickly took it down, talking about how his contract is one of the most lucrative in wrestling today. We know how Mercedes was very vocal about her contract as well, and it's possibly the biggest contract a woman's ever got in wrestling history. So it would make complete sense that someone like MVP, with his credentials, both in and outside of the ring, Bobby Lashley is a former 2-time world champion, Shelton Benjamin winning everything but the world championship, have to go in there and say, listen, this is who we are. Let's not messing about. Let's do this properly. And to have that group, then have the elite on the other side. Interesting. Interesting indeed. But I think we'll see what happens. As we said last week, I'm kind of hoping that we see a couple of weeks of to and fro, and indecisiveness, and all that kind of thing from maybe Mercedes and Swerve. No. Go on.
Well, Tony Khan books week to week, so if it never happened last week, then it's probably not happening. But
wait,
can we aside,
can we at least acknowledge this Hurt Syndicate does not look like Tony Khan kind of booking?
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes me wonder if somebody else is helping, because this does not feel like, and even honestly, whatever's going on with Mox, that doesn't feel like what we've seen from Tony Khan before.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, with just Mercedes, I just think Mercedes probably won't attach herself to anyone else, especially any other kind of male-led group. She probably wants to make it on her own and all of those kind of things. So, but I feel like she needs something like this, even if it's to then break out later on, and that's really what gives her start, because I just feel like nothing is happening for someone with all your star power, all your name gravitas. I just feel like nothing is literally happening. So yeah.
And I think for me, there's two ways to come back to what you just said. You could have a situation, we've seen it so many times in AEW, where there's a manager who has a few different clients, so to speak, where they don't always come out all together, but you'll see that manager come out with those, either that tag team or that singles competitor. You only really maybe see them together backstage or something. It might be a situation like that. Or the other side of this is as well, Gerard, you mentioned the Undisputed Kingdom, that not really working out. We've seen it a number of times. You can write a whole list of factions and groups that were exciting to see come together, didn't work out. Undisputed Kingdom, the pinnacle, You know, there's been so many more. So the fear is, will this actually work out in the way that we wanted to? You know what I mean? It could do. There are great signs. There are great signs to see that it could work out right. But then will it? As Mick said, you know, AEW feels like it's booked week to week. It might be the big thing at the moment, and everyone's excited for it now and how it can go and where it can go and blah, blah, blah. But if it happens, and then while it's happening, will that same excitement still be there? In a very similar way, we always talk about people chasing championships, but when they win them, the excitement kind of, you know, is kind of lost a little bit. So that's my only fear. But one, I'm not trying to get too excited about the possibilities because it sounds almost too good to be true. But then at the same time, it would be phenomenal and possible for all that to happen. One thing that we already know that is happening is Willow Nightingale has her AEW Women's Championship title shot against, I forget her name completely, I don't know why. AEW Women's Champion Mariah May, that's the one.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and Gerard, what does this mean for Willow? I don't think we're expecting Willow to win. But what does it mean for her in this moment?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, she's got this match against Britt Baker tonight, and the winner of that will head to Wrestle Dream this weekend. I definitely think she's going to win that, she being Willow. It's interesting because I think Willow has proven she can win the big one. You know, whether it's the New Japan Strong Championship, the CMLL World Title, the TBS Championship. The question is, will they put the rocket ship on her for this? And, you know, this kind of goes to the point you just made earlier about that chase versus the actual championship reign. The chase for Mariah May was one of those things, and it, to me, produced one of the best moments in all of AEW when she attacked Toni Storm. But not even her win it all in rivaled that attack of Toni Storm.
Right.
And there's not been this moment for Mariah May at all during this. So there's a point of, for me anyway, where I'd like to see Willow win this championship just to give some degree of excitement back to the women's world title, which for whatever reason seems to always kind of play second fiddle to whoever's holding the TBS championship. And again, it's kind of that way with Mercedes Moné. So I'd like to see this happen for Willow. There's a line that Mariah May used that I just kind of was like, eek. She has a weirdly correct point on this. And that is, she says that Willow seems to always fail upward, meaning she loses a title and then she gets a top at a bigger title. You know, so she lost the New Japan Strong title, then she gets a shot at the TBS title, lose the TBS title, then gets a shot at the CMLL World title. And now she's lost that title. Now she's getting a shot at the AEW Women's World title. So it's an interesting theory, and I'd like to see Willow prove her wrong.
That would be very, very interesting. The other thing that happened last week, we finally got, after so many years, Ricochet versus Will Ospreay. That reaction from Mex says it all. I'm not saying anything more. Mex, carry on.
Isn't this the match that Ricochet went over there for? Left his wife to go and be fighting Will Ospreay.
Left his wife to fight Ospreay. Oh my God. Wow.
My biggest annoyance. So okay, I watched this match, and obviously it's years on since the classic one that they've had, you know, and both men have obviously bulked up since then. Both men have aged since then. So even when they were doing their sequences and stuff, you could see it wasn't of the pace of what we have once seen and stuff like that. I felt as the match was getting good, we then decided to do this funny ending to it. And for me, you guys say, you know, this were the best wrestler and stuff like that. You guys are always big on definitive finishes and wins. Don't tease a dream match, a genuine dream match. Like, this isn't like, there was no need for you guys to come out the gate and do this match so soon anyway. You chose to do it. and then you've almost, cowarded out of the finish of who's going to beat who or whatever. Now it's led to Wrestle Dream, where all of a sudden it's a triple threat match. So now we have our out of how someone is going to lose this match or whatever the case is. Yeah, it's just I'm watching Ricochet and I'm just thinking, well, I know we often say as content creators and journalists and whatever, like, oh well, as long as the person's happy and stuff like that. Well, I'm not happy. So I'm not happy. I will rarely kind of voice my opinion. Obviously, someone's career, they can do what they want in it. But for me, I just don't see how this is a positive move for Ricochet. And I've tried to do all of that, like, well, as long as he's happy. But the truth is, I'm just not happy with what I've seen so far. Yeah, it's not what I want to see for him, for anyone. They've got these guys in AEW in abundance. Like, I don't see what Ricochet is really adding to the party. But yeah, some will say as long as he's happy.
I think for me, if there's anything to take away from this, any kind of positive in terms of where Ricochet is now and what he wanted to do, I think he got himself in a space where, we've said this before, he hit a ceiling in WWE. And for him, his only way of getting back that good feeling again was going back to his glory days. And this is the closest he can get while still getting that good money as well, having the freedom while still getting the money. Seen some of his old friends, Swerve, Ospreay, so many others as well. And the other thing that he did as well over the weekend was go back to Japan. He teamed up with his old teammate Kima as well in Japan. They had he had a bit of a dream face off with Vikingo. That hasn't happened before. So there's that. There's those little things there, and I'm in a very similar space to you, Mex, when it comes to what he's doing and where it's going, and from week to week, kind of hearing him talk, and I'm like, Ugh. And then the finishes to matches and who he's facing and what happens in the match, and I'm just like, you did that the other week on WWE, like all of that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, what was it like? Why? But I think it is what it is. I think I'm now in the understanding or the belief that there's not many more places for Ricochet to go, regardless of what company he's in, because there are so many people of that same standard level, maybe even better. As you said, he's a little bit bigger, a little bit slower than he used to be. He can't be the Ricochet of old. So how does he get back to there when there are still the likes of, your Sammy Guevara and, Vikingo, Phoenix, what's his name? Camouflage. What's his name?
Hologram.
Hologram and whoever else. Another person who kind of came out the woodwork who looks very similar to him as well. Like, there are so many people coming out of the woodwork who are not necessarily products of Ricochet, but, I guess products of obviously Lucha Libre and all that kind of thing, who are now a lot more popular in terms of the wider audience or even the Western American audience than they were 20 years ago. The only two people we knew back in the day, well, a couple of people that we knew back in the day were all on WCW. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Juventud, them kind of guys. But now there's a lot more of those guys, and they all kind of do a very similar thing. A lot more death-defying than what we've seen Ricochet do, or does now, at least. So, who is he?
What I'll say is death-defying, correct, but death-defying isn't always good. I would still say, even with added age, added size, added weight, whatever you want to call it, Ricochet is still up there. He's still one of the best. My issue is you have come here, and like I said, we were sitting together in All In. He made his debut. The pyro went off. I counted the money. I said, if you are putting the pyro for this guy, he is big business. All right, cool. All till now, this guy hasn't cut one promo in the ring in front of the live audience. All till now, it's been backstage or pre-recorded interviews and this, that, and the other. like, is this guy speaks English? This isn't, Japanese talent that we're saying, oh, they have to have a translator or this, that, and the other. Like, I'm just like, is he going to ever give him that chance? Because we nailed WWE to the cross for never giving him a chance to kind of do these. Now we've been here, you're putting him against the best in the company, but it's just like we're not giving him the exposure. There's nothing different. He seems angry. He seems like he's got an edge to him. Send him out there. Let him insult some fans if they're booing him while he's trying to speak or whatever the case is. Let him get this over. I'm watching the exact same thing. There's no growth. There's no experience. You're running back to Japan to go and have matches with Vikingo. Your wife is here in Atlanta, bro. Like, you want to live out like a young boy's dream. You're not moving forward. Like you said, you want to rehash the glory days. You want to get back that feeling. Like, move forward, bro. Like, I just want more for him, and I don't know if we're gonna get it out of this run.
Yeah. Gerard.
I know we're not supposed to quote this person, but much like a certain Kennedy Vincent McMahon, that's a different person, said to Stone Cold Steve Austin when Mike Tyson came out and Austin kind of shoved him and they got into a brawl, and Kennedy Vince McMahon walks to the outside of the ring and he looks at Stone Cold and he says, "You ruined it. You ruined it." That's where we are right now. You ruined it, Ricochet. If you had stayed where you were, because here's the key. The key is you don't go into a pond where every fish looks just like you. You move to the pond where you are one of one, maybe one of, but you're not one in a million where there's just a whole bunch of you. Like, and so one of the reasons why that match didn't hit the way it did 8 years ago is because the match 8 years ago changed the industry.
Right.
And when it changed the industry, everybody else said, we want to be a type of Ricochet or Will Ospreay. And so there are easily, with no exaggeration, 10 to 15 Ricochets already running around AEW. So when you see him do, a Spanish Fly, we've seen that before. When you see him do a 630, every week. So it's common. Ricochet, at least when you're in WWE, there may be 2 or 3 people who might try that, but you are still the highlight of the night. Rey Mysterio's there, but he is used very rarely. So you get to be that guy. That wasn't good enough for you for whatever reason. And I think what it's done is it has made Ricochet common. And because he doesn't have the verbal skills to cut the kinds of promos that we'll remember, and now all the things that made him special have made him common, he's no different than any of the Martins. He's no different than Leo Rush. He's no different than what's the other guy with top
and Action Andretti.
Action Andretti, right? He's no. The concept that Ricochet is no different than Action Andretti tells you a lot. Tells you a lot.
Wow.
And so, the fact that they wasted this match to kick off 5 years of Dynamite and it ends in a draw and then it ends in a DQ. No. We just gave a Rolex to a 2-year-old. Why did we do that? Why did we do that? Why? It doesn't make a lick of sense. So while I applaud the fact that, hey, the media rights deal got you $180 million a year, that's great. I no longer have confidence in what you'll do with that $180 million a year because I'm looking at what you've done with Mercedes. I'm looking at Ricochet, and I'm going, what did we just do? We got him off of the free market. Great. Now what? Because you don't know how to spend this money. You don't. This when we sit down and talk about 2024, the great hits, the great misses. We will herald Jey Uso as a great hit. We will herald finishing the story. We'll talk about Swerve Strickland. Hopefully, we'll talk about the Hurt Syndicate. When we start talking about the misses, I hate to say this publicly, but we will talk about Ricochet leaving the WWE as the first ever speed champion to come and do this.
Yeah. What's scary to me? We're talking about all the, we've named so many different people, and the fact that Ricochet is one of many now, and all the rest of it. It's crazy to think that even with every single one of those ones that we can think of, there are probably only 3 of them who have more than just talent in the ring and can speak on the mic.
Correct.
That's actually very worrying. One of them being Leo Rush, the other one being Will Ospreay.
Right.
But yet you put Ricochet back with Will Ospreay, who's gone on leaps and bounds in terms of ticking boxes, in terms of what a wrestler should be able to do. And you're making Ricochet look worse than he did in WWE.
Correct.
That's the truth of it.
Correct.
Because those two came up together, or those two were made popular together, and then you look at the difference between them, and you're like, oh, no one's going to care about Ricochet no one's going to care about Ricochet.
So even Ospreay, that has been galvanizing the crowds, and his music goes and everyone goes crazy, he comes out and he does all the bruv stuff, and since he's been in this feud, he's been cutting promos backstage.
True.
And like I always highlight to say, there's a promo is backstage is fine, but you don't have the energy of the crowd. The crowd are just watching along, sort of thing.
Right.
And I just don't understand. It must just be because they don't have the confidence. Ricochet can cut a promo without maybe making a mistake or whatever the case is. I don't know. And I'm not solely, again, putting this all on AEW. I'm putting this on Ricochet. I'm putting this as far back as WWE, because he went through the NXT process and just let him wrestle and never sat him down and said, hey, Mr. Ricochet, this is a microphone. You have to learn how to use it here. Like,
or maybe they did.
They did. They did with Logan Paul. They did. And look how they did.
But then they shouldn't have moved into main roster then. If he's not,
I was going to say they did it with Velveteen Dream.
True.
I mean, he's had opportunities. I just, at some point, we have to put the onus on him. At some point, it's got to go on him.
It has to be. I don't think there's any other way to look at it. It's that simple. Let's move away and let's end this on a good note. NXT, the second week on the CW is happening tonight. Let's try and get through this as quick as possible. Last week we saw Trick Williams become the champion again. I think we all expected it. We all kind of wanted it. My question is, again, though, was it the right decision? Is this now going to last longer than the last reign? Is it going to be better than the last reign? We've questioned it. Is it going to be better than the last reign? Mex, what are your thoughts?
I think the field of people he can come up against, like currently, with now we know the inclusion of TNA is better than what he first had to work with. I think he will hold the title for longer. But now, like, this is kind of the real test sort of thing. We need to see. We know the character stuff. Just about Ricochet, for him, the character stuff is all there with Trick. Now it's really having those kind of memorable matches, and you're in the arena to do it. You're in NXT, and NXT are clearly behind you. So this is now your opportunity to show that you're just more than a mic man and a box full of energy. You have to really kind of bring the matches that make people think, when it's all said and done and you drop this title, that wow, that was a really good title reign because of the feuds he had, the matches he had, and then obviously what he brought to the dance. So yeah, I think it was fairly obvious that we all thought that he would regain it on the CW debut, but now the hard work begins. Oh, are you muted?
I think you're muted.
Could we hear you?
So sorry. So we it's crazy. We saw that I believe Ethan Page made an appearance on Raw yesterday.
Yes.
Almost like the day after he lost the NXT Championship. There was talk of him going to the main roster. For me, I think it's very, very early, but it's happening.
Can I
Trick
just say
Williams
on
was
that?
asked-
Yeah.
Go for it.
I was actually just on Rest Things last week. I was saying how kind of disappointed I was with his run. I just felt like, especially the way he just held the title. I literally said like he literally just feels like he's just holding this title for Trick. Like I didn't feel like we really got any real Ethan Page character or anything from this. Like, and for someone obviously left AEW, I thought you want to make a big splash. And then one of the lads said that maybe it's like not in a demeaning way, but he needs people of his level to really, because we know Ethan Page has something to him, but maybe it was hard for him working with younger, less experienced talents, is what was being said in our discussion. And I said maybe because I even felt watching his interaction with Adam Pearce. Like I felt something. I felt like, okay, this seems a bit better, sort of thing already. So maybe he needs the pressure of something more under the lights rather than a smaller pond, so to speak.
Very true, very true. But in comparison to that, Trick was asked about him, possibly going to the main roster and all the rest. Obviously, he's holding the championship. It's not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But he was like he's very excited for the CW era and what that means. Gerard, how important is it for him to be holding this championship as this whole era starts?
I think it's very important. It obviously sets the tone for what the new era of NXT on the CW looks like. I mean, it got a complete rebrand, new logo, new colors, new championships. Everything is new, and now we've got a new champion in Trick Williams. So I think it makes perfect sense in terms of the direction for where they want to go, and Trick Williams leading that direction. What that will look like for Trick. I think this is interesting because I think Trick Williams, as of right now, causes us to ask the question specifically in WWE, what's more important, character and personality or in-ring performance? The irony is we just talked about a guy who excels in in-ring performance, and we're all going, that's not enough, and we could make the argument that the people that we would put on our Mount Rushmore of WWE were not the greatest in-ring performers, but their character and their ability to talk and their ability to connect with you allowed us to want to see what they would do in the ring. And at that point, because they used so much personality, they didn't have to do as many moves. They didn't have to, have all of the fancy types of things. They just came in and punched and kicked, and we were like, yes, from your Stone Colds to your Rocks to your Hogans to, whomever. So I think for Trick, he's got the character, he's got the personality. And so I think the in-ring things will come with time. We keep forgetting he's only been doing this a handful of years, like less than 5. So yeah, I think it'll work, but I think for this new era, which will be heavy on personality, heavy on connection, heavy on trying to rope in new fans, he's got the look that all the women are gonna love. He's got the swag that all the guys love. He's the guy who's going to bring in new eyes to the product.
Yeah, and I think that's what works for him. My fear is that even with his matches and stuff, and it's not necessarily the move set or the the amount of moves that he can or does do in the ring is the issue. For me, it's more so the execution sometimes. In the big matches, it kind of just feels a little rushed, maybe a little bit sloppy because it's rushed. And I think if he tweaks that part there, he's the whole world's his oyster basically when it comes to WWE and pro wrestling. I think he's the perfect guy though at the same time to be at the head of the table, so to speak, with the CW era. Another man.
One thing, yeah.
Go.
I can just add.
Yeah.
It is imperative that he stops rapping.
Oh, please.
Please don't just stop.
It's gonna carry on. It's gonna carry on. People are lapping it up. It's gonna carry on, and I don't like it. I've not watched any. I think it's 2 that he's done. I've not watched the second one at all. I refuse.
Yeah, I refuse to watch the second one. And the
first
Pete
one,
Dunne one I watched through my hands.
But halfway, I was like, no, just no. We talk about guys who have not been in NXT for a very long time. But there is one guy I feel who has just overshadowed everyone and everything in terms of, the short number of years he's been in the ring, what he can get done in the ring, his personality, his mic skills. This man literally has everything we want to tick off when it comes to a pro wrestler, and that is Obafemi. Of course, over the weekend, I believe it was on Friday, if not Saturday, he actually became the longest reigning NXT North American champion in history, surpassing Wesley's 269 days. As champion, he has had 10 defenses against 11 different opponents. Two of those matches have been triple threat matches. And this guy has a match against Tony D'Angelo tonight for his NXT North American Championship. Does he continue to reign, or does this record reign end inevitably? Next.
I think, I don't know. I'm very scared that now that he's hit the record, they do the switcheroo and put it on Tony D. And Tony D has obviously lost. They've done like a little crisis of confidence story. Surely you'd think the mob boss is going to come around and win it now, sort of thing. Yeah, it's I wouldn't be mad at it. I would like mourn the loss for Obafemi, but I wouldn't be mad at it because I do like Tony D, and if that helps to move Obafemi up the card, then yeah, I don't have an issue with it at all. I say up the card. Up the card could be just skipping past NXT champion and going straight to the main roster, to be honest, because I definitely feel like he's got what it takes, sort of thing. So yeah, we'll see, but the optics don't look great for Obafemi tonight, I reckon.
Gerard?
I would like to say that the optics didn't look great for Roxanne Perez last week, and she overcame.
True.
And so with that said, I am still hanging my hat. I understand. I mean, the Don had the whole Rocky video and the whole, I'm scared and, let's pump you up and all the things. So I get it. But I need Obafemi to be Obafemi. And I need him to put the Don out of his misery. Now, Mex, we don't often stand on opposite sides of the coin here, but I have never been a fan of this Don. Never, ever. Never, ever. And so I need Obafemi to put him out of his misery, make him rethink his whole life, disband the family, or at least decide I'm not worthy to be the Don. Let me just go find something else and be somebody else or whatever. But the Don is very 2.0. Yeah. We have long left the 2.0 era. So to me, this is the last remnant of that, and Chase U are the last remnants of 2.0 currently in this iteration of NXT, which has now changed its look twice since 2.0. So yeah, it's time to end in St. Louis, bury him under the ark, and let's just move on and continue this very dominant special reign of Obafemi as North American champion.
I'll just say, I like Tony D as a wrestler. I don't really care for the Don gimmick, and yeah, like if he went to main roster, I don't really think he would succeed as a gimmick. So yeah, it is probably best he loses it. But I think I might have said this last week, or maybe I said it on Wrestlings. I think like the actual money is in Obafemi retaining, and then Stacks turns on Tony D Like
Ooh.
you're a rubbish mob boss. Like then,
Yeah.
How can I respect someone that flat out said I'm scared of Obafemi? You know,
Right.
so
And
I
then
think
lost.
yeah, exactly. And lost twice. So I think the money is actually on Stacks, on Tony D losing and Stacks turning, and then he takes the family sort of thing as his own. So yeah,
I like it.
That's what I'd like to see. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I can see that actually happening tonight. Definitely. I'm not that Obafemi would need that to happen for him to win. So maybe it would be a thing that happens after the match or probably next week if the Don loses and stuff. But yeah, I think that could happen. But in terms of the optics that we've been shown the last couple of weeks or since Tony D'Angelo lost the last time, it does feel as though there's a strong possibility that Don could walk out as the North American champion. But at the same time, the only thing for Obafemi is he'll go up. You know what I mean? And I don't necessarily mean to the main roster. I just mean, to the next, a bigger opportunity than being North American champion. Simple as that. I don't see it going any other way. Finally, I want to end on this one. Javon Evans has the biggest opportunity of his whole life and career as he faces the Apex Predator, the legend that is Randy Orton. Even in a vignette on social media, Randy Orton has been, vocal about this being a great chance for Javon Evans to show himself as being the next star for NXT. Javon Evans, how do you feel? How would you feel as Javon Evans right now walking into this match?
I would probably feel like, number one, I'm on cloud 9. And then number 2, that I have butterflies the size of boulders, because this is easily the biggest match of his career, by far. And you think about the level of trust that the WWE clearly has in him to put him in the ring with a legend. It's going to be crazy. I don't think there's a scenario that Javon Evans loses. And what I mean is, even if he doesn't get the 1, 2, 3, he's already won.
Right.
Because of the level of exposure, the eyes that are going to be on this match, the people who are going to look at this kid and go, he's amazing. Because he is. I think he's the future of the business. 20 years old, special. It's going to be a great night.
Next, I'm going to end on this final question. How and when does Randy Orton hit this RKO on Javon Evans?
Boy, it's gonna be bouncy. Wow, I don't know what they're gonna do. They've got that stage that's kind of off in the corner. Well, they're not gonna be in the Performance Center, are they?
No.
So yeah,
they'll be in St. Louis.
Yeah, God knows what they're gonna do. He's gonna try and do some top rope springboard something, and Randy Orton's gonna catch him, and he'll know about it. But yeah, it's funny. Even with this match happening tonight, this actually may still be the biggest match Javon Evans has for the next 3-5 years, depending on where things go with him and how quickly he gets called up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, massive opportunity. This is someone that's 20 years old. Like Randy Orton was a world champion by the time this guy was probably just come out of his mom. So it's like, yeah, it's
very true.
It's crazy. True. So big up him, and hopefully they put on a great show tonight.
Yeah, man, it should be amazing. Excited for what happens tonight. Guys, our time is done. This has been WrstlXtra. You're watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See us every single week. And to also see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions to WWE, AEW, and everything else in between, as well as his exclusive interviews as well. You can also find Mex with the man them on the Wrestling's channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see all their content on a weekly basis. And you can follow Mex on WrestleManiac.uk, on Twitter, WrestleManiac UK, on X. I'm sorry, on Instagram. I said both of them. Why? You can find this guy, Gerard Bonner, on all things Bonafide. You can also catch him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also find him everywhere in the world, as well as commissioned concerts, doing these broadcasting and interviews and commentary for the faction show, the Nightmare Factory, Caribbean Wrestling, Arshay Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, IWE, and everything else in between. You can find me in the one place you need to find me, which is Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram. And we will see you again next time.